If you're built like a credit card and you don't want to be, this video is for you. I literally doubled the size of my glutes in 1 year. They used to look like this, and now they look like this. But I want this to be the only video you ever need to watch to build a nice butt. So I'm gonna go through the only 4 movements that you need to build nice glutes. This brings me to my first point, which is that we're gonna train glutes in the shortened position. This movement targets the gluteus maximus. We target the shortened position because it fatigues the fastest. When you squeeze or contract your glutes at the top of a hip thrust or a bridge, they tire quickly because the fibers can't generate that much force in that position. If you save these for later in your workout, you'll be too fatigued from heavy compounds to get a strong contraction. Starting with a shortened position ensures that you get a high quality mind to muscle connection. And to be clear, I sucked at hip thrusts when I first started. It took me about 6 months to start nailing it. I could not feel them in my glutes no matter what, all until I started doing glute bridges on the ground. I did 1 set of 100 reps, unbroken, as much as I could without resting. That is when my glutes started to light on fire. I could finally feel them. I was just using lightweight and doing 1,000,000 reps so that I could feel it where I needed to feel it, which directly translated into my ability to feel them during hip thrusts. If you're struggling with hip thrusts too, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to do them perfectly. So first, you're going to need a bench or a hip thrust machine. Regardless of what you're on, your upper back, your shoulder blades need to be touching the bench, not your traps. If you're by your neck, you're too high. If you're by your lower back, too low. Think the bench is kissing your bra strap line. Then you're gonna roll the bar over your hip crease and we're gonna place our feet. A really great cue for knowing where to place your feet is to stick your legs out right in front of you and then to place your feet where your knees just were. A lot of people mess this up. If your feet are too far forward, you're gonna feel the movement in your hamstrings. If your feet are too far back, you'll feel it in your quads. That's how you know how to make appropriate adjustments if you're feeling it in the wrong spots. I've seen this a lot too. A lot of people tell you to push through your heels. The strongest position, the most power generating position, will be when you push through your midfoot. Imagine pushing evenly through the floor throughout your entire foot. Bar placement, you want to make sure that the bar is low on your hips and you do have a bar pad. This will suck so bad if you don't have a bar pad. Pad the pelvis, not the abs. When you go to do a hip thrust, your spine and your pelvis are key. We want to think cottage cheese bed, okay? We are tucking our glutes under. We are moving our belly button closer to our rib cage. You can think about that. You want to maintain this position throughout the movement. Another thing to do throughout the entire lift is brace. Bracing just looks like having a tight core. It does not mean holding your breath. You want to inhale on the way down and then exhale on the way up. This is going to make sure you have oxygen flowing so that you don't black out during sets. When you're moving from the bottom position to the top position, you want to think push your feet through the floor. Rather than thinking you're scooping your booty up, try to think about you just pushing the floor away. This will allow your glutes to move up in the proper position. Common mistakes I see during the hip thrust are going too slow to feel the burn. Listen, progressive overload will build that fatty, okay? Going slow to feel the burn will actually hold you back unless you are just doing it to warm up so that you can feel the mind-muscle connection that will allow you to do the reps properly. Another mistake I see is feeling this exercise in your lower back, which is something I also experienced. To get rid of that, tuck your pelvis harder and tuck your ribs down more. Make sure that you're looking at your knees throughout the movement, because if your chin is up here, your back is going to be arched, and that's how you're going to start to use your lower back instead of your glutes. If you're quad dominant and you feel this exercise in your quads, I highly recommend starting with lighter weight or putting a booty band around the base of your knees. You're going to press the band out slightly as you generate force towards the top, making sure that your knees are not moving forward over your ankles. Another thing I hear is bar pain on the hips. That's honestly just standard practice. You do get used to it. As long as you're using a little bar pad, you can add more layers, but ultimately it will impede your ability to do the movement well. So kind of just rock with it. It gets better over time. I don't know why you stop bruising, but you do. The last mistake I'll discuss is if the bench is too high. This can seriously impact your ability to do the movement well. Ways you can prevent that: number 1, find a lower bench. Number 2, you can get a pad and place it against the bench, which will allow you to put your shoulders in the appropriate position. There's a variety of exercises that you can do to target glutes in the shortened position. My favorite is definitely the barbell hip thrusts, but there are many variations of this. You can do Smith machine hip thrusts, you can do banded hip thrusts, you can do single leg hip thrusts, you can do machine hip thrusts, glute bridges, which are just like hip thrusts on the ground, and you can do those with or without weight. These are all going to primarily train the gluteus maximus, which is the primary driver of hip extension. Secondarily, these will train hamstrings, adductors, erectors, and quad quads for stabilization, but those should be secondary. If you're feeling them there, you're doing it wrong. Which brings me to the second movement pattern. We're going to train glutes unilaterally in the lengthened position. Unilateral just means single leg exercises. In the lengthened position, your glutes can be loaded less, so we always want to put that second. However, I like to train unilaterals before bilaterals because it develops even glutes and targets the adductors and hits sometimes glute med and glute min, which makes you overall more athletic. Again, unilateral means you're just using one leg at a time. Bilateral means you're using both. So there are 3 tiers or levels of difficulty to this movement. Tier 1 we will always place immediately after our shortened position movement. Tier 2 can be placed before or after bilateral movements, but tier 3 will always be placed after bilateral movement. The reason for that is tier 1 you can go heavier, you can load it the most. Tier 2 you can't load as heavy. Tier 3 is more isolation or accessory work, and you can't fatigue the muscles as hard, so we want to save that for later in our workout. Great example of a tier 1 exercise, the Bulgarian split squat. You can do this with dumbbells or on a Smith machine. This is one of the best exercises, if not the best, to grow your glutes in such a great lengthened position. Next on the list of tier 1 is front foot elevated split squat, which kind of looks the same as a Bulgarian split squat, but it targets the glutes just slightly differently. And last is single leg Romanian deadlifts. With single leg RDLs, you're going to get max hip hinge. I recommend loading these contralaterally, which means you're going to put the weight in the opposite hand of your working leg. This helps to train your glute med and your glute min, which are your stabilizers, which will give you overall more glute growth, better bang for your buck. Tier 2, still gonna grow you, just don't have as much stimulus as tier 1. Coming up first is the reverse lunge, which is kind of like a front foot elevated split squat, except for less aggressive. Next, we have the B-stance RDL, which has all the benefits of a single leg RDL, but a little bit of added stability. Finally, we're gonna do step-ups. Step-ups to target your glutes need to be performed with your chest at about a 30-degree angle, and you should be touching with your back foot as far away from you as possible. This is very different than a quad-focused step-up, where your body's more upright and you're more vertical. Glute-focused step-ups, the movement pattern is diagonal. Tier 3 exercises are great for accessories, and they include Cossack squats, which stretches your glute max, your glute med, and adductors. Curtsy lunges, which is great for athleticism, great to train the glute med, great to train the glute min, and a single leg press, making sure that your pelvis is tilted forward. These are all going to train your glute max in a slightly different way than the shortened position. Moving on to the third type of movement, which is the bilateral training in the lengthened position. We train our glutes in the lengthened position bilaterally later in our workout because oftentimes these exercises are very fatiguing and will result in your lower back or your quads potentially stealing the show away from your glutes. Examples of these exercises include squats, deadlifts, or any type of hip hinge that goes kind of heavy. There are 3 tiers to these movements as well. We want to do our primary heavy movers, our medium accessory work, and then our very light accessory work. Our first one up is the RDL. The barbell Romanian deadlift will grow your glutes like no other in the lengthened position. This is number 1. Number 2 is actually just a deficit RDL. So you'll have to go a little bit lighter on these because of the increased range of motion, but this is great for growing both the glutes and the hamstrings. First exercise in tier 2, low bar back squat. A lot of people love to say squats grow your booty. Yes, they do, but not as effectively as you might think. Oftentimes people squat and they're very erector or quad dominant. In order to prevent that, you want to make sure that you're really allowing your hips to travel backward and stretch on the way down in the squat. Next up is the trap bar deadlift. You want to make sure you're really hinging when you do this trap bar deadlift to target the glutes. This will allow you to load your lower body in a less stressful way than potentially a conventional deadlift or a sumo deadlift. So for tier 3, which is going to be great for hypertrophy, we got the good morning coming in first. This is kind of like an RDL in the way that the movement pattern is the same, except for that inherently you cannot load a good morning the same way you can load an RDL. It's uncomfortable, you're going to work your lower back, kind of dangerous, but if performed well, can grow your glutes very effectively. Following that, you're going to do a toes up elevated goblet squat. Toes up will shift the load a little bit further back, which will target your posterior chain more than heels up, which will target your quads. You might be wondering why I haven't really touched on sumo or conventional deadlifts. Though both of those work the glutes, the fatigue that they cause is not really worth it in terms of the hypertrophy that they result in. I love deadlifting. I was a power lifter. But number 1, if an exercise takes longer to set up than it does to execute, I do not have time for that. I'm not doing it. Number 2, if you're going super heavy on those, it's just going to sap your energy, your central nervous system for the rest of the week. And I'm not the biggest fan of doing high rep deadlifts. I think it's really fatiguing on the lower back. back, and that's not what I'm trying to work here, which is why I rank both of those last. Finally, we're getting into our fourth movement pattern, which includes the kickback/hip abduction movement. This movement pattern trains the gluteus minimus and the gluteus medius. A lot of people mess this up because they'll train their glute max with a kickback. That's literally the worst way to train your glute max. We just went over all these gorgeous exercises that you can really load heavily to train your gluteus maximus, which is your biggest glute muscle. Why would you waste a little baby isolation accessory movement on that massive muscle? Do not do that, because your ROI, your return on investment of the level of effort you're gonna put in, very low. However, because the glute min and the glute med are a little bit smaller, require a little bit more nuance to train, this makes the glute kickback absolutely perfect to train those two. To target the glute med and the glute mid in a kickback, you're gonna take one step back away from the kickback machine. You're gonna cross your other foot over, and then you're gonna lean forward almost a full 90 degrees, and then you're gonna kick with your other foot back, kind of diagonally. This is gonna feel absolutely insane, absolutely incredible. Make sure you load these heavy. You never need to be doing a set over 15 reps if you wanna actually see glute growth. After kickbacks comes the seated abduction machine. I'm obsessed with the abduction machine. What you wanna do though is alter the way that you perform this. So you're gonna wanna scoot forward towards the front of your seat and tuck your hips under, and then lean back with your upper body and squeeze from there. This is gonna target your upper shelf like crazy and grow you a freaking dumpy. Now, if you're at home and you need to train the glute med and the glute med, I really don't recommend switching out kickbacks or hip abductions for these exercises unless you don't have access to those, just because it's harder to progressively overload them. But you can do an all fours fire hydrant kickback. That's gonna work your glutes. You can do banded abductions. You can do banded walks or lateral steps. Those are all gonna work your glutes, and you're gonna feel the burn. It's really important though that we do not associate feeling the burn with progress, because moving up in weight or getting stronger is progress, getting bigger is progress. Feeling the burn does not equal progress. If you want to steal my perfect glute workout that incorporates all of these principles into it, follow me on Instagram at KatieLifts, DM me glutes, and I will send it over to you.